Right, and I want to go to Marc Overmars' story, and I want to couple it up with what we've seen recently, Mason Greenwood, Bomendi, and all these other stories. So, Marc Overmars leaves Ajax over inappropriate messages. Apparently, he's been sending messages to colleagues of a sexual nature, and I think it's been happening for almost about 10 years. I think it's come to light now, and he's just quit his job, and yeah, that's that. So Jay, with this story, Marc Overmars, it's not quite the assault or rape or whatever, but it's sexual messages and being inappropriate in terms of treating the fairer sex. There's a Greenwood story, there's a Benjamin Mendy story, there's so many soccer stories, and the question is,
there's also, sorry to interrupt, there's also Sigurdsson, and the reason I bring this up is because someone asked on Twitter, what happened to Sigurdsson? And Sigurdsson hasn't played for Everton since last season. I think May. You
do point out something interesting, yeah.
And when we've spoken about Everton as well and their midfield options, that hasn't come up. He's literally disappeared from the face of the planet. And the reason he's not been playing is because he's also got a case. So I'd like to put Sigurdsson in there as well.
And then there's Boateng brother as well with the case. I don't know if that's concluded or wherever that's at. But the issue here, Jay, is that why are footballers finding themselves, or former footballers in the case of Overmars, finding themselves in this situation where, is it a football culture thing, or is it just male, which we assume a position of power because of the money and the fame and the name that we have, and so we feel that which women are obliged to come to us or to give themselves to us, whatever the case is. But it's such an interesting trend that these things come to light not too far apart from each other in this particular time, in this day and age. Are footballers being fed the wrong information about who they actually are? Is fame a monster for them in terms of you're good on the pitch, but off the pitch? Like, for instance, I'll give you another story. The most unassuming face of all, Ryan Giggs. When you hear the stories of him and his brother's wife and this and that and this story, you're like, oh, Giggs, the one with the hairy chest, and what, you don't suspect nothing. And because of the long career at United as well, you don't think there were problems. Are footballers being fed the wrong idea of who they are? Do they think themselves too powerful?
Man,
or beyond the law, or
footballers occupy a place in society that not many people do. In their home countries, just all over the world. I mean, we here talking about guys we may never see in the flesh, because they're many miles away. And when you buy into your own hype, you tend to act in a way whereby rules and consequences are not things that you think apply to you. And these guys are powerful in some regard. They've got all the money in the world and they've got all the time in the world, and those two things don't tend to mix very well. And if you're going to be a football superstar as well, that tends to be very obvious from a young age. When you become a global star, as I'm saying, we've been tracking this career from when you were in high school. You were probably in grade 8 playing for first team, and even within your own high school, or within your own town, whatever the case may be, you are being lauded as something other than everyone else. You are a rung above, and if you continue absorbing that and ingesting that, it does tend to create an idea that, well, you are the big man on campus, and campus in this situation would be the world. And what we know to be of a truth, unfortunately, this is a football problem, but it's a societal problem. Whenever men have had power, they've tended to abuse it. It's in corporate, it's in other spaces, and it's in sports as well. And there are just enough ingredients within football to make this something that is prevalent, unfortunately.
So, I'm trying to think, what can teams do? Because, for instance, I'll give you an example, right? Dele Alli, when he was presented at Everton, one of the pundits and a few other people said, this guy just looks like he came off the street. Look how he's dressed and whatnot, right? And Frank Lampard came to his defense with, I don't care what he wears, what he drives, as long as he plays and he's committed for the team. And that's his job, right? Because he's an Everton FC manager, and that's it. But when you look at that, and I know that's a statement that says, I'm not going to be your dad or whatever, I'm not going to look over you and do more than what is necessary, but do you not think that the old school cats have got something right? I don't know, the old school cats also include double gigs who are wrong, also include double cats going with drinking problems and whatnot, and it's a societal problems. But do you think the old school cats have something in the way of trying to rein in the colorful hair and the lifestyle and whatnot, as long as because the idea is that as long as you're performing on the pitch, it doesn't matter what you do on Twitter or on Instagram or if you party, but as long as you're performing on the pitch, because you find even Ivan Toney having that F Brentford video. What's that about? You know, it's off the field, but what's that about? It's a lifestyle thing, because if you're sitting with your family, like a Rooney would do, Rooney's got his own cases, never mind that. If you're sitting at a family, like, oh, I've got the consummate professional, like Siyabonga Nomvet. Because Nomvet does tell you that by 9 p.m. I'm asleep, I'm with my family, I don't do all these other things. If you're like a Nomvet and you're a family guy, you have less problems. But do you think that is a realistic approach in terms of curbing certain attitudes and behaviors in footballers? Would the guys go this way, or do you let people be?
As the organization? Yeah.
Do you have a say in terms of, guys, I would prefer you not to do this, not to go there?
You can say that, and you can try. I know, for example, over in America in the NFL contracts are not guaranteed, and they can cut you at any point. And personal behavior is one of the things that they use most often to just cut a player, and you've lost out on the money of the contract that you signed. As far as I understand, in football, that's not the case, which though would suggest that there's a greater onus on the club to say to you, we need you to present a certain picture or a certain ideal for in society when you're outside of these grounds, when you're outside of this place. But there is but so much you can say to a fully grown man. And there is but so much you can say to a guy, as I'm saying, who's like earning tens and hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, and you have them for a set 2 hours, 3 hours at a time during the day. And as I'm saying, there's all this free time, and you cannot police what they do every single moment of every single day. And they've got, as I'm saying, they've got all this time on their hands. They've got this clout. They've got this money. They've got these opportunities, and those things when not handled correctly, they spill out in the way that we're seeing and in these headlines. Ultimately, man, when you go to work, because that's what sport is as well. When you go to work, it's not the responsibility of your workplace to shape you into a particular person. Yes, of course, because sport does occupy a place little different from other institutions, in that people are affiliated to a football club differently than they are to some corporate organization. And there is then a responsibility to carry or present the crest in a certain way. So yes, they do go into their personal lives, but ultimately it does come down to those guys. And by the way, with regards to the old school, I don't know if these things weren't happening. It's a very different thing that something was not being reported, or you did not know about something and it was not prevalent.
But I'm just saying
happening.
The modeled idea on how to be a man back in the day versus these kids who do whatever. Like, for instance, people were scared to grab a beer around Sir Alex Ferguson. I remember there was someone who was hosting a party, and when Sir Alex Ferguson came there, it was back in the 90s, everybody's pretending they were not smoking, they were not drinking, because that's the idea that Sir Alex Ferguson had painted. If you want to play for United, here's our conduct, even off the pitch. I'm just saying, do you think that has some effect in terms of modeling a person to be a particular way, or would it not work anyway?
Well, on some level, because if you are a taskmaster, you tend to get a certain reaction of fear mixed with respect, and those two things overlapping one another. So within the confines, though, of the team, you're not. If Sir Alex Ferguson is having conversations with you, which we are not privy to, that if you behave a certain way away from here, I'm going to cut you. Especially if he's got the luxury to do so, because he might say to you, I don't need you as much as you think I need you here, because we are a dominant team and we can do without you. This is why he was okay with Beckham, who was finishing second in the Ballon d'Or in a particular year, going to Real Madrid, because like I don't want to stand for whatever it is that I deem to be your nonsense, you know. But if that is not something that is going to keep someone when they by themselves, as I'm saying, as a fully grown man, even even with your own parents, there's a point where you're not hearing the voice of your mom or dad whenever you're somewhere and you're doing whatever you're doing. That just comes down to whatever your principles, your values are at that point in time. So yeah, you might come in hard, and it might work with younger players up to a point, and then their own volitions take control. Well,
yeah, I think there is no clear solution, I think, for the situation. It's tricky in terms of how to deal with it, but it's a sad occurrence in terms of what our role models in terms of the footballers have become, or rather what they are part of in certain instances, because not everyone is evil, and at the same time not everyone is good. You only find out when the story comes out that such and such Rashford gave the people lunch, Greenwood is in the case, and we don't know them, but it's
because the question might be, why aren't more people like Rashford, but you cannot condemn people for not being like Rashford. So it is a case-by-case situation, because football is a microcosm of what is happening in society. I wouldn't say it's more prevalent in football than it is in society. It is, the spotlight is just brighter on these guys because we have an interest in what they do with their lives, which is playing a sport. But they, for better or worse, they are role models. And they do carry a particular idea in the minds of children and of greater society, and within the institution of football or sport, as a players' union. Because I've seen the Liverpool captain Henderson. He's come out with some very strong statements in the past about how, with regards to racism, with regards to homosexuality and inclusiveness in the game, and things of this nature. It is at a point where within the dressing rooms, because we know locker room talk and what that has come to mean in this day and age, within the confines of them, the guys who have a better sense, they need to come together and try weed this out, as should groups of gents in different spheres of society, I would say.
I guess it's not to watch and allow it happen, but intervene, unless we are part of it as well.